And guess what's back tonight? Those beautiful sunsets overlooking the Friday night lights. Pineville hosting that man, three-time state champ at Manning, Jess Curtis, in his first action at Nat Central. And there's the newest LSU commit, Joseph Cryer, wreaking havoc on the O-line. When you have a guy like that, you run right behind him. Zion Thompson powering his way into the end zone, first possession of the game. How about this? First offensive snap for Pineville. It's going to be a fumble on the exchange, and the Chiefs recover. Got the ball in good field position, and then check out this athletic play from the quarterback. Dodging defenders, would eventually find Cameron Davis, who would do the rest with the ball in his hands. He gets in for 6 after that shifty move. Pineville, though, would respond on a pair of big runs from Eric Frazier as they kept it close tonight. Defense playing well as well. Two teams trying to make way more noise this season in Class 5A.